All right. What's up, y'all? Week 11 fantasy takeaways. You guys know the drill. I'm live, around 11 every Monday morning with my caffeinated beverage to talk some football. I did miss a good majority of these games because I was actually at the Bills and Colts game. And before people jump in here, I kind of just jump in right to my first takeaway. And Jonathan Taylor, my God, holy. I watching that live was a sight to see, man. Jonathan Taylor was unstoppable. They couldn't do anything to defend Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor ran it down their throat over and over again, and they knew the whole crowd while I was out there. The whole crowd was chanting "Stop 28!" like "Stop 28!" and they couldn't do it. The Bills could not stop Jonathan Taylor, and there's a tweet that I saw that it's like a 7-game stretch or an 8-game stretch of Jonathan Taylor of what he's been doing. And it's like 100 yards here, 150 yards here, 130 yards here, a touchdown pretty much every game, multiple touchdowns in some of these games. Like, this guy might be the MVP right now, legitimately, because there is no clear favorite at quarterback currently. Like, Justin Herbert had a great game this past week, but he's been up and down. Tom Brady's had a couple, down games here and there. I still say he might be the favorite of the quarterbacks, but who knows, man? Like, Dak Prescott's had some down games. Patrick Mahomes, of course, has been up and down. We've had Kyler Murray dealing with injuries. Like, there is no clear quarterback MVP favorite right now, which makes me think, is Jonathan Taylor the MVP? If the Colts make the playoffs, maybe they even win their division, it'll be pretty tough to catch Tennessee. But if they're the 5 or the 6 seed or something, I think Jonathan Taylor legitimately belongs in the MVP conversation with what he's doing. If he continues to do what he's doing things that we've seen from Derrick Henry last year. And Derrick Henry, of course, didn't win MVP, but the difference with what Derrick Henry did and with what Jonathan Taylor is doing is that if Derrick Henry was having this season that he had last year right now, he would be the MVP favorite right now, because there is no clear-cut Aaron Rodgers of last year that was a quarterback playing at an MVP level also, because a quarterback will always trump a running back in the MVP conversation. But with Jonathan Taylor, he is kind of running unopposed right now. There's no clear-cut quarterback that is the MVP favorite right now. Now, maybe once Kyler Murray comes back, he kind of establishes himself. Maybe Tom Brady has a good stretch to end of the season. Maybe Dak Prescott does something. Who the hell knows? But as of right now, if I had to cast a vote for MVP, my vote would be Jonathan Taylor. Clanger says 206 plus points in a half PPR league this week. That's impressive. I dropped 220 in a PPR league because I had the Herbert, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen stack along with Justin Jefferson. So I definitely did a lot of stuff there. Matt Breida worth a speculative ad. Again, I saw this game very closely. Obviously, Matt Breida definitely looked the most like explosive out of those running backs, but the reality of the situation is, and I talked about this last week, the Bills use their running backs at like a 22% or a 22nd rate in the NFL in terms of expected fantasy points to the running back position. And I've talked about this already too, is that their running backs are a complement to their offense. They're going to be involved to some degree, but the primary value is in the passing game. And I'll kind of jump right into my next takeaway, which involves the Bills passing game, is that Dawson Knox basically neuters Cole Beasley. And with Dawson Knox coming back last week, playing a full allotment of snaps, everything that we wanted to see out of Dawson Knox, he made Cole Beasley basically irrelevant again. And we saw when Dawson Knox was kind of at his peak fantasy value earlier in the season that Cole Beasley was unstartable. He was a guy that was running like 50-60% of the routes, was only coming in 11 personnel situations. And Dawson Knox was clearly the guy that they wanted to feature in that role. And we saw that again this week. So Cole Beasley, I don't think he's droppable necessarily, but he is a guy that I'm not throwing into my lineup anymore. As long as Dawson Knox is on the field and I continue to see this usage, you can't put Cole Beasley into your lineup anymore. Elijah Moore MVP season. Glad Bryson brought that up. Elijah Moore has arrived. He has officially arrived. I'm so glad that I believed in this kid all throughout the draft process, because he is proving, he's making me look smart. He's making everybody look smart that believed in him. And he was one of the classic examples. And I saw Mike Me Up tweeted this out. Bunk Bed Breakdowns Mike Me Up tweeted this out, that Elijah Moore was the slam dunk. He was, same with Jamar Chase. He was the film meets analytics, right? The handshake, emoji. All the film guys loved Elijah Moore. All the analytics guys loved Elijah Moore. So he should have been probably higher rated than some of the guys that people were split on, right? Because Jalen Waddle didn't have a good analytical profile. He had good film, but he didn't have a good analytical profile. Rashad Bateman had some film concerns in his final season. We had Devontae Smith, who had a terrible analytical profile that a lot of analytics guys didn't have. Most people, like general conventional wisdom, should have said that Jamar Chase is wide receiver 1. Elijah Moore is wide receiver 2, simply because we all agree that these guys are great, right? Everybody's split on the other guys, but we all agree that these guys are great. I had Elijah Moore as my wide receiver 4 heading into the draft. I had him ahead of Jalen Waddle, just behind Rashad Bateman, but all three of the guys that I just mentioned, were late first round grades for me within like 20 or 40 points of my grading system. So they were all great guys, great prospects for me. Elijah Moore, finally, we saw him get the usage, right? We had seen him perform in recent weeks. He was getting, targets. He was performing, he was scoring touchdowns and things of that nature. But 49-41, he outsnapped Jamison Crowder. That is very important. 84% of the routes he ran in this game. That is very important. And also in this game, like kind of a mini takeaway, was that Michael Carter suffered an ankle injury. Now, hopefully Michael Carter can come back, because it would be very Zach Wilson luck that Michael Carter, who is providing a consistent running game, would get hurt the second Zach Wilson's about to come back. But either way, Elijah Moore, you have to be excited about what you saw. From a dynasty perspective, buy high. I talked about it on Twitter, and this tweet actually got a lot of steam, that Elijah Moore and Rashad Bateman are the only 2 rookie wide receivers. In Matt Harmon's reception perception, he did a midseason grading of the rookies, basically, and he charted the routes that they've run so far. And he basically concluded that Elijah Moore and Rashad Bateman are winning at a 75 or 75th percentile, basically, or better, against man, against zone, against press, against double coverage. They are doing it at a very high level. It was only a matter of time before these guys started getting the targets, started getting the usage, start getting the route participation. In Elijah Moore's case, these guys are studs. And again, I am willing to buy high in Dynasty. These are both top 24 wide receivers for me. I have no qualms in saying that. They had high draft capital. They're already performing as rookies. And you guys know with how much we talked about guys like Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, guys that performed as rookies last year, you best bet we're going to be talking about Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, even Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. Like these guys, of course, Jamar Chase, he's already in his own tier. But that is basically what we're seeing out of these guys. And it's exciting to see, because we have yet another good wide receiver class coming up. And the NFL, if you're a Detroit Lions fan or a team that needs a wide receiver, you're in a good spot right now, because the NFL is ripe with wide receivers, both in free agency and in the draft. So definitely good news there. Clanger, Rodgers 33, Adams 27, Justin Jefferson 33, Taylor 51, Swift, my high scores. Wow, that is a big lineup that you had there. And I had a DFS lineup where I had Adams, Justin Jefferson, and Jonathan Taylor. And needless to say, I basically 3x my bankroll in DFS this week. So that is definitely good to see. Yeah, those guys definitely went off. The pivot game, and I heard TJ Hernandez of 4for4 talking about this. He was big on the Packers and Vikings game as a pivot away from Kansas City and Dallas. For those of you guys that play DFS, I didn't play any Dallas or Kansas City players really in my lineups. I played a bit of Michael Gallup, but that was about it, because I knew that game was going to be so popular, and it benefited me so much more to fade that game. And even if that game had hit, it wouldn't have killed me as much, because so many people were on that game. Both quarterbacks were above 20% owned. Gallup and Tyreek were 35, 40% owned, depending on the contest. So for me, I'm off that game. It doesn't benefit me to be on that game. And not only that, but the sharps were taking the under, right? They were smashing the under. In fact, they had a 98% of the bets on the under in that game. And sharp money, they make money. They're very good betting, and they know something that we don't, which is why I've started to side with what the sharps are doing a lot more. And it's drastically improved my DFS winnings and my DFS luck, basically. So yeah, that was definitely good to see. The Davante Adams needed a big game. I talked about him as a trade target. Again, the buying window's closed. He just had his big game. Probably can't buy him low anymore. So Colts are so scary right now. I don't want to see them in the playoffs. Yeah, and Jared's a Titans fan, so I definitely probably wouldn't. If you have Derrick Henry back, I don't think I'd be worried. I know you wanted to see a big Taylor game in person. Sorry he disappointed you. Yeah. 5 touchdowns, 200 yards. That's fucking weak. I needed a bigger game than that. How was the nasty weather in Buffalo? It was pretty brutal. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it made me wish I was in my studio fucking watching football instead of in the stands freezing my ass off, getting rained on. But at the same time, you're at a game. The environment was kind of dull because the Bills were getting shit stomped. But at the same time, Jonathan Taylor made it exciting. So shout out to JT for making it. Could have been worse. They could have been a 9-6 game and nothing happened. But despite the rain and despite the atmosphere in the crowd, it was still a fun experience. Had Jefferson, Taylor, Deontay, Herbert, Mixon, and have Brady. Yeah, that's That's a good lineup for this week, especially with Jefferson, Taylor, Mixon, all those guys pretty much, and Herbert too. They all did the Lord's work. I'm guessing this is super flex league, and you have both those quarterbacks, so you're in a great spot. CD and Michael Pittman Jr. killed my lineup this week. SMH started 6-0 and haven't won a matchup since. Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I've seen a lot of teams in my home league the past couple of years. We've always had a team that gets out to like a huge start like that, and then their team kind of just like falls off. It's like actually uncanny that it's happened every year that we've had our league. Pretty much somebody's gotten out to like a killer start, and their players just start to get injured, or their team just starts underperforming, and that's basically what happens. Oh, he's your backup. Okay, he's not a super flex league. Anyway, Austin says, I'm protesting fantasy football. Redraft leagues are too luck-based. I'm a Henry and Carson owner in my lineup. Yesterday, I had A.J. Brown, Lamb, and Najee all got hurt. Yeah. Sometimes that happens, man. It's why we love fantasy football. If fantasy football was easy and we knew exactly what was going to happen, the projections that Sleeper has or whatever app that you use were correct every single week, then no one would fucking play fantasy football. It wouldn't be any fun. The fact that it is so random and it is so up in the air is why we love fantasy football, right? So you can't protest fantasy football for being fantasy football, because that's how it is. Should I give away Waller and Cam for Montgomery and Schultz? I have Hurts, Hill, Lamb. Okay, no real flex. I would boost my flex and downgrade my tight end. Yeah, getting Montgomery in that deal is definitely helpful. Cam Newton is a great sell high candidate. I'm assuming that's what Cam you're talking about. So I don't mind that deal. I think that's a good deal, Nigel. You said you have Jalen Hurts already, so you don't really need Cam Newton. And they're kind of cut from the same cloth anyway as quarterbacks. They're going to pretty much produce the same way. So, yeah, I like Waller. I like the Montgomery and Schultz side there for you if you need to upgrade at flex there. Hope y'all held on to Elijah Moore, because I didn't. Shame on you, ball is life. There's no way I would have told you to drop Elijah Moore. I had him in one of my redraft leagues, and I legit held him the whole season until I could use him. I don't care. Like, with a rookie wide receiver, you got to understand that he's going to take some time. And in Elijah Moore's case, he was getting the usage immediately, wasn't quite grasping the NFL offense quite yet. Then he got injured, and then they were like, okay, we're going to ramp this guy up a little slower now. And then he started to get things, started to click for him, and now he's arrived, right? Like, this is the first week that we can say the targets, the usage, the routes, everything was there for Elijah Moore. There was nothing that we were left wanting more with Elijah Moore. He got everything that you could have asked for. He is the number one receiver of that team. He's a guy I'm willing to start as a top 36, top 30 wide receiver every single week. There's only Tyreek Hill and Deebo Samuel is outproducing him over the last 4 games. It's insane. I grabbed Eli Moore off waivers last week. Good timing with both Lamb and A.J. Brown dead. Yeah. A.J. Brown's that's another one of my takeaways, man. A.J. Brown is so frustrating because you know how good A.J. Brown is, right? Like, it's not like he's playing bad or anything like that. He's getting the targets most games, and Tannehill's not playing the greatest. Their offensive line isn't, creating enough time for Tannehill to get the ball to A.J. Brown. Derrick Henry injury. I had a feeling this was going to happen, right? My worry was Derrick Henry goes down and this offense becomes stale, and they just lost to the fucking Houston Texans. So that basically happened. And Derrick Henry might take away from the offense's volume, but that efficiency, that play action ability that we see from A.J. Brown is what has made him good in the past. And he needs that with Derrick Henry in the offense. So it's going to be tough. Like, the volume is going to stay high, right? He's going to continuously get 9-10 targets a game, but he's only going to catch 5 of them. Like, that's how this offense is running right now. It's definitely not what you want to see. It's literally the anti-Tennessee Titans, right? Like, because in years past, we've been able to count on elite efficiency from this offense, and that's not happening right now. And, I figured coming into the season, don't overthink this, right? Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, and A.J. Brown on one team. This team is going to stay very efficient, and we've seen the Arthur Smith departure affect this team's play calling. We've seen A.J. Brown being the only option in this offense affect this team's performance as well. So it's definitely frustrating. I'm still willing to buy low on A.J. Brown. If you guys haven't had your injury, or what am I trying to say here? Your trade deadline yet, then go get A.J. Brown, because the A.J. Brown manager is probably very frustrated right now. Rightfully so. I have A.J. Brown in my home league and I'm kind of pissed off, but I'm still willing to stay the course with A.J. Brown, because the usage is there, volume is there. He's still an elite wide receiver. They just need to kind of pick up the pace on offense a little bit. And I thought that would have happened this week. I guess not. So Zach says Ayuk had another redemption game, dropped Eli Moore for him though. So I'm kind of sad. Yeah. So Ayuk also on my list of takeaways. Ayuk did outsnap Deebo Samuel, and he did run more routes than Deebo Samuel and things like that. But The thing with Ayuk and what we kind of saw last week was exactly what I expected to see coming into the season. I expected to see Ayuk as the X receiver getting the majority of the volume and Deebo Samuel to be used as a gadget player. Now, obviously, that is not the case anymore because Deebo Samuel has commanded a very high target share. He's still the gadget guy that he's always been, but he is the best gadget guy that we've seen probably in the last 15 years. So Deebo Samuel is still the number one in this offense, but the fact that Ayuk is separating his role away from Deebo Samuel to the point that they're no longer competing for targets. They are getting separate roles, right? Deebo Samuel is getting carries. He's getting short targets, things of that nature. Brandon Ayuk is getting downfield targets. He's getting red zone targets. And that's what I loved about Brandon Ayuk coming into the year, why I was so high on him, because I thought he was going to get the valuable volume, whereas Deebo would get the, Juju Smith-Schuster volume, where he'd be getting the short targets. And of course, he'd break off some big plays and things here and there. But that volume for Deebo has been just so high that it's superseded the valuable volume argument. So that's kind of my takeaway with that. But good news for Ayuk is that you can still flex this guy going forward because he's involved to the point. He's running all the routes, getting some targets now. He's a guy that you can flex week in and week out. Freeman is my waiver wire move, going to drop Wilson Jr. Sick of him. I'd rather have Jeff Wilson than Devontae Freeman personally. I know they're like, it's really annoying that they're using Deebo Samuel as like a running back, but Devontae Freeman, like I can't buy into Devontae Freeman. Like when you see replacement level running backs get good stretches of volume over the course of a couple of weeks, I'm always looking to sell high on those guys. So if you guys have Devontae Freeman, this might be a preview for tomorrow's video, but get rid of him. Like he's gonna have value to people. People are gonna think, oh, he's the running back for the Ravens. I can give up X player for him. If you can trade Freeman for anything that's of value, if you can trade him for a guy like Rashad Bateman, if you can trade him for any other running backs in that kind of tier, then go ahead and do it because Freeman he's not good. Like I don't really care if he's getting a decent share of the Ravens backfield. We didn't have Lamar Jackson in this game, who's going to take away a lion's share of the carries and the volume from this offense. So Devontae Freeman is just not a guy that I'm interested in. I would rather have Jeff Wilson Jr. Now, again, that's kind of pending Elijah Mitchell's status. If you don't have to make a decision on this right now, don't wait to see what Elijah Mitchell's status is going forward. If they provide an update, if they put him on IR or something like that, I would definitely rather have Jeff Wilson than Devontae Freeman. Saints need a wide receiver bad. Yeah, you guys really do need a wide receiver. I don't know why you didn't take Elijah Moore. He would have been a perfect fit for your offense. But in that draft, like Terrace Marshall, Elijah Moore, and Rondell Moore all made so much sense for the Saints, and they just didn't draft them. So I don't know what you guys were doing. Really hope Treylon Burks ends up in New Orleans. I hate to say this, man, but Treylon Burks might not be there when you pick. That kid is fucking special. Holy shit. That Arkansas and Alabama game just was littered with wide receiver talent. Jamison Williams, John Mechie, and Treylon Burks put on shows in that game. They looked phenomenal. All three of those guys look to be, at minimum day 2 wide receivers in the draft, but probably something like Jamison Williams and Treylon Burks are playing at round 1 wide receiver levels right now. And both of those guys showed what makes them special. Jamison Williams obviously has excellent speed. He's got he's not the Jalen Waddle type at Alabama, but he does have a little bit of that in him. Treylon Burks, of course, has like a Mike Evans type of skill set. He's just a big freak of nature wide receiver that can run like a deer as well. So he's definitely exciting. Antonio Gibson, 7.5 points. Yep. Definitely pour one out for Antonio Gibson. Again, I'm not surprised that he didn't have a great game. It was the Carolina Panthers run defense. They're very good against the run. The unfortunate thing was seeing Antonio Gibson fumble, and this kind of goes into another one of my takeaways. He did fumble in the first half, and then they started to give Jarrett Patterson and J.D. McKissic some run. So that wasn't definitely ideal to see, but I'm not really worried about Antonio Gibson going forward. This was a brutal matchup, and his matchups going forward are a lot easier than the ones that he just had. So I'm okay, again, still stashing Antonio Gibson, still playing him going forward. If any of y'all have Dak, best grab a QB to stream this upcoming week. Who does Dak play this week? They've already had their bye week. I guess because they don't have Cooper and CeeDee Lamb that you're saying that. I'm still okay playing Dak as like a low-end QB1 without those guys if they're not playing, but I don't even know who they're playing on Thanksgiving. Who are they playing? Either way, I'm fine still playing Dak, even though he's not going to have some of his weapons. I'm going to look right now just so I don't say something stupid here. They're playing the Raiders. The Raiders they're not the easiest matchup in the world, but I'm okay playing Dak even if he just has Michael Gallup out there. I tripled up this week in FanDuel DFS. JT and Eckler carried me. Yeah, I legitimately tripled my bankroll in on DraftKings because of Jonathan Taylor and Justin Jefferson, pretty much. Everyone thought he was back if you look deeper. Yeah, Antonio Gibson. I mean, I thought he was back, Antonio Gibson. I still think he's back. And when I say back, I mean he's back to the point of he's going to need good game scripts still. He's not going to get, if he gets screwed with a bad game script, he's still going to be not very good. And they got wiped by the Panthers in this game, so it's definitely not ideal. Also a terrible run defense matchup for Antonio Gibson. Like I said, his schedule is a lot easier going forward, so I'm still willing to buy into him. Again, he's not going to get anything better than, RB12, RB15, RB17 in my rankings, but he's still a guy that's a solid RB2 in my opinion. So he's not somebody that I'm giving up on. As someone who needs picks and depth, sell Taylor for Swift in a first. Yes, I would rather have Swift in a first than Taylor. But here's the thing. That is a really tough trade to make because Jonathan Taylor could legitimately be, what everybody wanted Saquon to be, right? Because I still believe in Saquon's ability to be that guy, but Taylor has that Saquon ability where he's the 101 and it's not close. Like he could be the best running back in fantasy en route to a Hall of Fame career. So if you want to give up Jonathan Taylor, Swift in a first is a fair deal in my opinion, because I believe, almost as much in Swift as I do in Taylor at this point. But Swift in a first, like that first might not be, the greatest pick in the world. And you could look stupid for that trade 2 years from now. But Taylor for Swift in a first is a fair deal if you need some depth, in my opinion. But I'd be hard pressed to trade Jonathan Taylor right now in Dynasty. Trade high on Chubb before Hunt comes back. Their playoff schedule 15 to 18 weeks. Don't look the best. Yeah, if Chubb has a hard schedule, Hunt's coming back. The only thing about that is that people probably know that's why you're trading Nick Chubb. If you're in any kind of sharp league, I'm sure that's why. If you offer Nick Chubb to somebody, they're going to go, you're only trading him because Kareem Hunt's coming back. So if you're in a bit more of a casual league, I think people might overlook some of those factors. But yeah, Nick Chubb's still a guy that I'm willing to sell high on if I can. I know you're an AJ Brown truther, so was I, but for rest of season, he's seeing my bench until proven otherwise. I think that's an overreaction personally. He's not seeing my bench. No chance. Again, you could be an AJ. I'm not an AJ Brown truther. I think AJ Brown is one of the best receivers in the league, and that's just a fact. According to his reception perception last year, his production the past couple of years, he's just one of the best receivers in the league. And some of the best receivers in the league have down weeks. It's just a fact that happens. And yes, this Titans offense is not going to be as good as we thought it was going to be, but he's still a wide receiver 2 at minimum. There's no way he's leaving my lineup. I don't really care who he's playing, who he's up against. I'm still playing AJ Brown as a wide receiver 2. If you have great options, you have Justin Jefferson and, Mike Evans and a bunch of other guys that you can throw into your lineup, go ahead. But if you're starting guys like Brandon Ayuk or something over AJ Brown, I think you're overthinking it. Adam Troutman is happening, guys. 8 targets this week and finally scored a touchdown. Yeah, he actually did. I didn't have this on one of my takeaways, but I did think it was worth noting that Adam Troutman was actually used a lot in this game, and Trevor Siemian seems to be gravitating towards him. Again, worth a waiver wire ad, but I'm not excited about Adam Troutman throwing him into my lineup. But yeah, he's worth a waiver wire ad, I guess. I have a Dak, Zeke, Lamb stack. How worried are you about the Cowboys going forward? I mean, I'm not worried about them per se. I think they're going to be a little bit more inconsistent than what we've seen so far, because we have seen a lot of feast or famine games out of the Cowboys, especially from the wide receivers, Lamb and Cooper. They haven't been consistent. And then obviously having no Cooper in this game was a big deal. But I'm not worried about the Cowboys going forward. Am I, tempering expectations a little bit? Probably, but I'm not worried about them necessarily. Goliday or Tony tonight, I would say that's a tough call. Kenny Goliday has consistently been the guy that's commanded targets, but at the same time, I think they're probably going to game plan for him more. If I know the Tampa Bay Buccaneers well, I think I do. I think they're probably going to try and focus on Kenny Goliday more in coverage. Might throw Jamel Dean on him, and if Jamel Dean's on him, I think he can handle Kenny Goliday. Sean Murphy-Bunting, our slot corner, is expected to be back this game, and he matches up pretty well with what Kadarius Toney does, but he also has some lapses in coverage, and he hasn't played since week 1 when he hurt his elbow against the Cowboys. So I would say both of these guys are good starts. Back end, wide receiver 3 types is where I had them in my rankings going into the week. If I had to pick one, I would lean with the role of Kenny Goliday. And the fact that Toney has been a little inconsistent with how much he's staying on the field. He keeps leaving games early with injuries, but I'd go with Kenny Goliday slightly, but I think they're both you could flip a coin, honestly. I think they're both really close. Yo, been using a combo of Carr and Tua in place of Kyler. Need a streaming option, not Tua or Carr. Why not Tua or Carr? So they have the Cowboys this week, the Raiders. Who do the Dolphins play? Did they not have an easy matchup? I think Tua is a fine streamer if he has an okay matchup. I don't have like any Dolphins on any of my teams. I can't even find any things here. Going to this guy's team because I know he has Waddle. No, he doesn't. He traded him away. Okay, this guy has Waddle now. Waddle and the Dolphins play Carolina this week. Okay, so that is a tough matchup. So I probably wouldn't play Tua in that one, but I'm okay playing Carr still if Kyler's out. And Kyler is out, obviously, because he's on bye week this week. So I'm still fine playing Derek Carr, Johnny. I'm down by 100. Brady, Godwin, Goliday, and Suck Up. I predict this game is going to be low scoring because I need them to score. Yeah, I don't think this game is going to be very high scoring either. But I could see a way that, this is a high scoring game because the Bucks are coming off of 2 down games. Typically, you can't expect an offense that good to just continue to be bad. And I also think the Giants are the healthiest they've been in a while, too. So I could see them putting up points as well. But 100 points out of those guys is going to be tough to come by. Swift, a top 5 pick in 2022. I think he should be based on his performance. It's all going to happen. It's all going to depend on what happens in the offseason, right? Because if he has a bad quarterback again, and the Lions are still a shit team, which they're probably going to be, I highly doubt they're going to suddenly become like a middle of the pack team over one offseason. People are probably going to be hesitant to take Swift as anything more than like a back end first round pick. So top 5 pick is a little rich. I think they would probably need a really good quarterback to come in to Detroit, which I don't think is going to happen. I think they're probably going to address quarterback in the draft, or they're going to ride out another year with a bridge quarterback. And then in that situation, you're probably looking at Swift being a back end first round pick and not a top 5 pick, because I'm sure people are going to want the Jonathan Taylors, the guys that are in better situations, Dalvin Cooks, Derrick Henrys. They're still probably going to be in the conversation. If you're talking dynasty, absolutely, it'll be a top 5 pick in a 1 quarterback format. But in redraft, I don't think top 5 pick is realistic enough, knowing the history of how people think about running backs. AJ Brown, what a stud. I'm at a loss for words. Yeah, no, you and me both. I had Taylor on 30 DFS tickets and barely won anything. Yikes. You must have shit the bed in every other aspect of your DFS lineup, said. Do you think Wilson coming back hurts more at all? No, I don't. I think Zach Wilson helps this offense. And I know I'm going to be in the minority saying that, but people are so quick to dismiss rookie quarterbacks, man. This is the hardest position in sports. Zach Wilson has sat and learned for 5-6 weeks now from some veterans like Mike White, who's been in the league for a couple of years, and Joe Flacco, who's been in the league for 15 years. So I'm thinking we're going to see a better Zach Wilson down the stretch. He might hurt more a little bit in terms of the efficiency of the offense because he still is a rookie quarterback and he's still learning. But I think he's going to gravitate towards Elijah Moore because they came from the same draft class. They were in rookie mini camps together. They probably have good chemistry. And we saw a lot of their chemistry in training camp going into the season. So I have no doubts that Zach Wilson is going to like Elijah Moore quite a bit. Will Taylor be the 101 going forward? Yeah, absolutely. He's the 101, 100%. If you're talking Superflex Dynasty, I'd probably, if you're talking Dynasty in general, I'm saying Superflex Dynasty, I would still take Patrick Mahomes over Jonathan Taylor, but 1 quarterback Dynasty or redraft or whatever you're talking about here, he's the 101. Go figure, I do a $100 ticket for the first time this season and put Fields in as my quarterback FML. Yeah, you got big balls for doing that. There's no way I'd be risking a $100 DFS lineup with Justin Fields as my quarterback. I was having a lot of trouble this week deciphering which quarterbacks I wanted to play because 2 of the ones that I wanted to play were Kyler and Lamar, who were ruled out. So my quarterback player pool really shrunk down to, okay, the guys that I like this week at their price on DraftKings specifically, because that is the site that I have more bankroll on, so I pay more attention to it. Cam Newton, I really liked at his price on DraftKings, and his ownership actually came in sub 10%, which I was pretty shocked to see. I also really liked Aaron Rodgers, who I got into one lineup, and then I also really liked Jimmy Garoppolo, who, based on his price, didn't do that bad, but we saw a lot of bad quarterbacks get there this week, which was really weird to see. Colt McCoy, Trevor Siemian, a bunch of guys that were garbage got good fantasy days. I'm locked in the playoffs trying to trade for a flex Henderson or Montgomery for weeks 16 and 17. I would rather have David Montgomery. I don't know what their schedules are off the top of my head. That might, play into my decision, but just on a raw, who would you rather the rest of the season? I would rather have David Montgomery than Darrell Henderson, despite the offense that Darrell Henderson plays in, despite the scoring opportunities that he has because of that offense. I would rather have David Montgomery because I believe way more in the volume and in the player because he's just a much better running back than Darrell Henderson, and he contributes more to his team's success. Grade my 10 team, half EPR, rest of season, 7 trades I made. Okay. You might want to DM me that because I don't know if I have time to go through all that on a stream, but you're completely right about Henry and AJ Brown. I remember you saying that when it first happened. Yeah, to me, it was just common sense, right? Like you have Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, and Julio Jones on the same team. Like, how do you stop that as an opposing defense? That was my thoughts. Sometimes people get, overcomplicated about fantasy. And I seriously still think to this day, and we're seeing it play out with Jonathan Taylor, with DeAndre Swift, with some of these other guys, that talent is the fundamental thing in fantasy football. We can get wrapped up in the numbers and the usage and things of that nature. But the real thing that results, you're never going to find a top 5 fantasy running back, a top 5 fantasy wide receiver, top 5 fantasy tight end, whatever, that isn't a super talented player. It's just never going to happen. So Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, these guys are super talented players. They were looking to be in great situations. The Arthur Smith thing definitely contributed. The injuries definitely contributed. But yeah, I didn't want to overthink that situation because it was playing out. At the beginning of the year, I was like, Derrick Henry, people are going to overthink Derrick Henry because he doesn't catch passes, but Derrick Henry has 20 touchdown upside this year. And that was the real drawing factor for me on Derrick Henry. I unfortunately did not end up with Derrick Henry in any of my redraft leagues because I didn't have any high picks. I literally picked like 10th or 12th in every draft that I was in. And the one league that I picked high in, I picked 3rd. So I got Dalvin Cook. So it was just kind of unfortunate that I didn't have any picks where I was going to be taking Derrick Henry. Maybe I could have taken Derrick Henry over Dalvin Cook, but in terms of process, I still think Dalvin Cook was the correct pick at the time. Do we honestly see Zach Wilson coming back at all this year? I'm not sure Saleh would compromise his future this year. He has a secure future. He knows that he has a secure future. The Jets aren't going to fire him after 1 year. They need to see what they have in their 2nd overall pick. That's just the bottom line. Joe Flacco is a progress stopper. He's not your future. He's not going to help your team develop. Yes, he might get your rookie wide receiver acclimated to the NFL, but your most important position and your most important player in your franchise is Zach Wilson. So you need to put him on the field for better or worse. He has to learn. So Zach Wilson has to be on the field. If he's healthy, he's going to play. What do you think of Saquon rest of the season? I think he's a top 10 running back. If not top 5, to be honest, because we know what his usage is when he's on the field. Might be, I mean, it says he's going to be playing today. Should be, full go, maybe limited to some degree, but I think he should be all right. Rodgers, Cousins, Adams, Jefferson, Peterson. Okay, yeah, this is the lineup, or Patterson. This is the lineup that you wanted me to review. I would say rating your team, you look good at quarterback. Wide receivers are good. Higgins, Kamara, Taylor, Swift, Ingram. Yeah, your team's like a 9 out of 10. You got 3 stud running backs, couple stud wide receivers, good depth. Solid quarterback, solid tight end. Nothing special at quarterback and tight end, but the rest of your team is going to carry that. So I'd give you a 9 out of 10 there. Brown is going in the wrong direction. Yeah, he definitely is right now. But again, he's going to have to be in my trade targets video tomorrow because it seems like the overwhelming favorite of people concerned about AJ Brown is the guy that we're talking about today. And that's why I like doing these live streams. I like to get a gauge on where you guys are thinking. And because my own opinion could be swayed, right? Like, because I could think, people are going to be lower on this guy and then nobody's concerned about him. But by the sounds of it, it sounds like people are concerned about AJ Brown. I'm not as concerned about AJ Brown. So I'm going to be buying him if I can. And that applies to you guys as well. If you don't have AJ Brown, you should be buying him because you can probably get him for a lot cheaper than he's worth. Do I start Javonte Williams over Antonio Gibson for the foreseeable future? I have both guys on my on my redraft league roster in my home league, and I actually have to start both of them, to be honest, pretty much each and every week. But I would still be starting Antonio Gibson. His role is more secure. Now, that could change. Javonte Williams is coming out of the bye week. We saw him post pretty much season highs and snaps over Melvin Gordon before the bye week. So if Javonte Williams comes out post bye week and, plays 68% of the snaps or some shit, then yes, you would start Javonte Williams over Antonio Gibson for the foreseeable future. But next week, I'm going to start Antonio Gibson over Javonte Williams, pending matchups. But I'm pretty sure they both have pretty easy matchups off the top of my head. Is Deontay Foreman a drop? I have Ingram, Kamara, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Gaskin. Yeah, I think you can drop Deontay Foreman. I really don't know what to do at my wide receiver 2 spot with Gallup, Bateman, Higgins, because AJ is so brutal right now. AJ is still your wide receiver 2, brother. AJ is still your wide receiver 2. I know it's frustrating, but he's still your wide receiver 2. I have a trade offer receiving Antonio Gibson and Michael Pittman for Gallup and Mike Williams. That's a pretty enticing offer. I would say Pittman is probably your best asset in that deal. And Mike Williams and Gibson are probably like tied for second. So I think I lean the Gibson and Michael Pittman side of that. You're also giving up the Pats defense, which is pretty solid, but it's a defense. I don't really care that much. In terms of trade value, I'm never going to trade anything of value for defenses because defenses are so predictable from a process standpoint. All you really need to do to be able to stream defenses correctly is look at the Vegas lines and who's at home and, target some bad quarterbacks and turnover prone quarterbacks, and you're pretty much golden. So I'm never, concerned about trading defenses. So I would take the Gibson and Pittman side there, James. I have Burrow and Hurts. Burrow sucked again for fantasy. Who would you play rest of season? That's a tough call, honestly. Like Joe Burrow is going to have good matchups here and there against this. Actually isn't that great of a matchup, the one that he had. And that was another like semi-chalky DFS game that a lot of people were on that I wasn't really buying, to the fact that the Bengals were just going to light up the Raiders defense, because the Raiders defense has actually been pretty good this year in coverage. So I figured Mixon would be the guy that would do the damage to him. And that's what ended up happening. So again, it's just going to be a play the matchup situation. I'm not going to say start Hurts every game the rest of the season or start Burrow every game the rest of the season. Pretty much every week, you're going to come on here and ask us which one to start based on matchups, I'm imagining. So Jalen Hurts has the safer floor week over week because of his rushing, but I think Joe Burrow has the higher ceiling because what he presents with his arm is 30, four touchdown, 300-yard type of performances, which Joe Burrow, even as a rushing Jalen Hurts, even as a rushing quarterback, still hasn't really proven that elite ceiling that Joe Burrow has proven. I believe that the Bills were going to be the best team this season, but no, right. It looks like the Patriots could go all the way. Also, totals are frauds. Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing you mean Vegas totals. Vegas totals are good indications of games, how they're going to go. Yes, they're going to be right sometimes. Yes, they're going to be wrong sometimes, but there's a reason Vegas stays in business. So I would say that they're going to be right more often than they're wrong. The Bills are definitely somewhat disappointing from what we had kind of expected. Yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on the Bills. The Patriots could go all the way. I don't know about that. They're a good team. They're going to give some people some problems in the playoffs. They might win a playoff game or something like that, but I'm not there. There's no way they're going to beat every team that they come in contact with in the AFC side of things. I think they're eventually going to play high-powered offense like the Ravens or somebody like that, and they're probably going to lose in the playoffs at that point. But if they face, a team that makes a lot of mistakes and they, have a 0 turnover game and force some turnovers on defense, I could definitely see that in the playoffs. 50 watching, 8 likes. Come on, guys. It's free. Yes, please please subscribe, please comment as well on all videos. If you guys support what we do, it literally doesn't cost you anything anytime we drop a video, just like it, comment something down below. It doesn't even have to be a question. You can just comment, enjoy the video. That helps us grow. That helps us get up in the YouTube algorithm. We got to fight the fantasy headliners and the fantasy footballers and the big channels, right? Because these guys get the eyes, get the viewers, and we're competing with them. So if you guys can comment, and subscribe if you are new as well, that is definitely appreciated. Midnight went from 3-5 to 6-5 this week, blowing out my opponent trying to win out for the playoffs. Yeah, definitely respect to you for going on a 3-game heater. Definitely helps out. What's your top 3 dynasty running backs? My top 3 dynasty running backs right now are Jonathan Taylor at running back 1. I believe I still have Christian McCaffrey at running back 2, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on. Okay, so I have Jonathan Taylor at running back 1. I have Christian McCaffrey at running back 2. And I have DeAndre Swift at running back 3. So those are my top 3 dynasty running backs right now. They are all in the same tier based on what you need kind of thing, because I can't really say with definitive, answer for every team across the board. I would take Christian McCaffrey over DeAndre Swift, because if you're a rebuilding team, I obviously would take DeAndre Swift over Christian McCaffrey. And if you're a contending team, I would take Christian McCaffrey over DeAndre Swift. So again, we're probably in the offseason. Let me know what you guys think of this idea. When we shift our content to Patreon, which we're going to do, instead of releasing draft guides this offseason, we're going to shift things to Patreon. So it's a lot easier for you guys. You don't have to sign up for a website. Our website is expensive to run, and we're, a bunch of college kids. I recently graduated, but Danny's still in school. So we don't really have the money or the time to run a website to its fullest potential. So it's way easier for us to do it on Patreon. But what we're probably going to do is have tiered rankings where we have on one side, we have our overall, let's say our top 20 running backs, but we're going to have them in different sections. So we'll have the contending running backs on one side, the rebuilding running backs on the other side, and then we'll kind of layer them in the rankings that way so that you guys can tell based on your current team construction who you would rather have. So if you're looking for a rebuilding running back, for example, You look at our top 20 running backs, you see that we have JT, then we have Swift, then we have Najee, then we have Gibson. Like that's like our rebuilding type of running backs, because it's really hard to compare. Would I rather have Jonathan Taylor? Would I rather have Christian McCaffrey? Because it all depends on your team's construction. It's really hard to compare. Would I rather have Austin Eckler or Antonio Gibson? Or, you know what I mean? So that's probably what we're going to do in the offseason. So who do you think is the consensus top 3 picks next year? So I'm assuming you're just talking about redraft. I would say it's probably going to be Jonathan Taylor at 1, Christian McCaffrey at 2, and it's really a toss-up between like Derrick Henry. I would say you could also throw Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, those guys into that conversation as well. So I personally would say that it's probably locked and loaded that Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey are the top 2 picks in some order. And then it's really a toss-up for number 3, depending on, what the scoring format is as well, too. Because I don't think there's any wide receivers that are going to sneak into the top 3, top 5 picks this year. So it'll probably be running backs. I would have to say, if I had to say right now, it would be Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry is probably what I would say. I have Taylor, Eckler, and Swift. Should I trade one of them for a wide receiver stud or ride my 3-headed monster rest of the season? You ride your 3-headed monster, dude. That is a fucking elite running back core. I would not be looking to trade those guys. And unless you're going to get Devontae Adams for one of those guys, I'm not trading them. Mike Williams. Yeah, I mean, Mike Williams is doing Mike Williams things. We kind of knew this was Mike Williams' MO coming into the season. He's going to have big games. He's going to catch long touchdowns. What we got fooled by was what we saw at the beginning of the season, where he was more than that. And we talked ourselves into the fact that he might be a top 20, top 12 even wide receiver rest of the season. That's not what he is. He's a boomer bust wide receiver 3. That's what he is. He's going to give you big performances here and there, but that's basically what he is. If anybody in your league thinks he's back to being what he was early in the season, then sell him. But I'm okay holding Mike Williams as a wide receiver 3, like I just said. He's in that Tyler Lockett, Chase Claypool area of he could, kill you this week or he could win you the week. Like there's really no in between with him. Also fits into that Will Fuller category, what we saw from him for a number of years in Houston. That's basically what you got to think about Mike Williams, is that any given week he can go into your flex spot and give you a big week, but any given week he can go into your flex spot and give you 4 points. Like that's just basically what you're going to get. Start to Tyrod, Tua, Teddy Bridgewater. Again, I have no idea who these guys are playing. I usually would say don't ask me start set questions until Wednesday, Thursday, when I've looked into the slate and I know who everybody's playing off the top of my head. Off the top of my head, I would say Tyrod and Tua right now. But again, I have no idea. Like I know Tua's playing Carolina now that I looked at it, but I don't know who Teddy Bridgewater's playing. I don't know who Tyrod's playing. So I'd go with Tyrod and Tua, but I don't really have conviction about any of those. Josh Allen, rest of the season. He's still a top 5 quarterback for me. I have him QB2 rest of the season. You can make the argument that, all these guys belong ahead of him. Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, whatever. But none of those guys are consistent. Like none of them have had the Josh Allen season that we saw last year where he was consistently giving you those games every single week. No, none of them had the first 10 weeks of last year where Kyler Murray was an elite quarterback. None of them had the Lamar Jackson in 2020, whenever he won MVP, or Patrick Mahomes in 2018. Nobody has proven themselves to be a cut above the rest of the quarterbacks. So Josh Allen to me is still a top 5 QB. Because any given week he can throw up 40 points. And he did 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, the last time we saw him on the field. So yeah, he had a shit week this week, but I'm not concerned about Josh Allen going forward. Oh my God, we need to talk about T. Higgins. Yeah, the Bengals haven't been throwing the ball quite a bit as of late. And it kind of makes sense when you look at their schedule and what smart teams do. And I think we should really take this into account a lot more when we're talking about fantasy analysis is when you have an easy rushing schedule, which the Raiders that they just played is a perfect example. They also played the Jets. They also played the Lions in recent weeks with the Bengals. When those teams are better at defending the pass than the run, it makes sense to run the ball, right? Like I think we would all agree. The Jets they're bad against everything, but they're better at defending the pass. Same goes for the Lions. They're bad at everything, but they're better at defending the pass. Same goes for the Raiders. They're pretty much bad at everything, but they're better at defending the pass. So why not use Joe Mixon and try and win the game that way when you know that that's their weakness? Like Bill Belichick has talked about for years. He's made a career out of this. You attack the weaknesses of your opponent. Like you exploit the strengths of your own team. That's the art of war or whatever that he always quotes. So it makes sense that they're not throwing the ball. When we get some easier matchups for T. Higgins, which we're going to get in the next couple of weeks based on their schedule, I think they do have not the easiest schedule in the world, but they have schedules that also have tough run matchups, which makes them want to pass the ball quite a bit more. And I actually have T. Higgins on my team right now, so I can look. Okay, so Pittsburgh, who they play this week, has a better pass or run defense than they do a pass defense, even though they've seen Austin Eckler and DeAndre Swift tear them a new one the last couple of weeks. But Pittsburgh is still worse against the pass than they are against the run. So I could expect they're going to go into that game trying to throw the ball. Los Angeles Chargers, that's a different story. They're actually really good against the pass, not as good against the run. So it might be another Joe Mixon game. San Francisco is pretty good against both. So we could kind of see what happens there. Denver, a lot better against the run than they are against the pass. Baltimore, better against the run than they are against the pass. Kansas City, week 17 in the finals, better against the run than they are against the pass. They're actually bad against everything. So it doesn't really matter for that one. But that's pretty much my thoughts on T. Higgins. Again, he is in that Mike Williams, Chase Claypool, like a little bit ahead of those guys, target share wise, but he's a guy that's not going to be consistent every single week. He's a wide receiver 2-3 type. He's not going to be, an 18 point per game guy. What am I going to do with DK and Russ? Cause man, this is terrible. Yeah, that's brutal. DK especially, I don't really know what to do with him. I'm probably just holding on to him, maybe buying him low if you guys don't have him on your team. Russell Wilson, this is the Russell Wilson MO. This is why I never drafted Russell Wilson. This is why he was listed as my quarterback bust heading into the season, is because this is what he does. If he doesn't have elite efficiency games, he's not going to be good for fantasy. So I don't want Russell Wilson. If you want to sell him on name value, go ahead. But since you have DK as well, I'm probably just going to have to stick it out with those two guys. Higgins is terrible. I feel your pain. Yeah, big time. Was that game flow or was Higgins just that bad? He didn't have the greatest game from what I saw, but that was kind of game flow. Again, it was an easy run matchup. Makes sense to run the ball. That's not really what that's kind of what I'm taking away from that game. I'm doing my first Dynasty League this offseason. Need to learn the strategy. Yes, we will definitely have you covered in the offseason. Pretty much once we get to like January, we're going to spend a couple weeks recapping the season and what we learned and, going back on previous things that we talked about in the summer and did it pan out and adjusting our philosophy and our strategy going forward. But then we're going to get in like early February, late January. We're going to get into big time Dynasty content, off-season mode, basically where we're talking about rookies and we're talking about strategy and things of that nature. So we will have you covered for sure. Awesome. What do you think of the deal that Sutton just got? Yeah, that's actually also one of my big takeaways that I had listed is that I made a trade in my Dynasty League with the listeners yesterday with Reese. So shout out to him. We made a trade and this happened right before kickoff. So of course, Justin Fields breaking his ribs or whatever the fuck he did definitely hurts my side of the deal a little bit, but I traded him Mack Jones, who I think is at an all-time high in terms of his fantasy value, because his real life value, like he is a good quarterback. Like nobody can deny that, but let's be honest here. He's an immobile quarterback who needs, 2-3 touchdowns to be fantasy relevant. And as it stands right now, he doesn't really have the weapons around him to help facilitate high passing performances, nor does he have the coaching staff that's going to let him throw the ball 40 times a game. So is he going to get a number one wide receiver in the draft? Probably. They're probably going to draft somebody or they're going to sign somebody, whatever the case is. But with Mack Jones, to me, I saw a selling window because everybody is riding high on Mack Jones right now. And I also packaged Mack Jones with Jerry Judy and a 4th round pick. So like a throw in. Jerry Judy is obviously a very important fantasy asset. He looks like a great young wide receiver. But my concern was Courtland Sutton getting re-signed. And it's not that I don't believe in Jerry Judy to be able to usurp Courtland Sutton in the target pecking order, but they still don't have a quarterback. Courtland Sutton, Noah Fant, Jerry Judy, I believe all three of these guys are extremely talented. They're going to eat into each other to some degree. So to me, selling Jerry Judy made kind of sense to upgrade to Justin Fields. And that's basically what I did. I got Justin Fields and a 3rd rounder for Jerry Judy, Mack Jones, and a 4th rounder. So a lot of people, I put the poll on Twitter, a lot of people liked the Mack Jones and Jerry Judy side a lot more. And I understand that, but Justin Fields presents Konami code league winning quarterback upside. And that is why I traded for him. And if Matt Nagy's gone next year and they hire a Brian Dable or somebody that's more creative, I think they're going to utilize Justin Fields' legs a lot more. I've seen what I needed to see out of Justin Fields so far to know that I think Justin Fields is a good quarterback that can make it in this league. I know when at his best, he can do Cam Newton level things for fantasy. So I traded for Justin Fields. And we always want to be trading for appreciating assets. Would it shock anybody if a year from now, Justin Fields is the back end 1st round startup pick because he's running the ball 600 yards on the season, 5, 6, 7, 8 rushing touchdowns. It wouldn't shock me one bit if he's in that Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow kind of tier at quarterback. And if that is the case, I just made up a tremendous amount of value because the ceiling for Mack Jones is that he, works into the young Kirk Cousins, young Matt Ryan kind of tier of quarterback. And that's great for real life, for winning games, things like that. But that's not great for fantasy. So I'm going to take the risk on the Konami code quarterback, basically. And I wanted Trey Lance instead of Justin Fields, but Danny has Trey Lance and he knows why I want Trey Lance. And it's really hard for me and Danny to make trades together because we share a lot of the same philosophy and opinions. So that's pretty hard to do. But let me know what you guys think of that trade. I got Justin Fields in a 3rd rounder, gave away Mack Jones, Jerry Judy, and a 4th rounder. And again, my team is currently where it stands right now is a contender, but it also has like young pieces on it. So I'm kind of like in the middle where I don't need to like push all my chips into the middle, but I also don't need to sell everybody either. So I know Danny talks about that as being like a terrible position to be in, but I actually don't mind being in that position because I have contending pieces that I can use to win. I also have young pieces on my bench that I can kind of thrust into starting roles once my old pieces get old. Yeah, so that's what I think of the Sutton deal. Basically, Jerry Judy is going to be valuable, obviously, but he gets hurt a little bit in Dynasty, knowing that Cortland Sutton. There was always the chance that Cortland Sutton signed elsewhere. Jerry Judy was number 1, right? And that was always like in the background for people's minds, but that's obviously not going to be the case now. If they get Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, none of this is going to matter. But if they don't, maybe that's a situation we're kind of regretting. Burrow threw 29 times, which is unacceptable. Need him to blow out his knee again and get Brandon Allen in there. Yeah. Burrow, maybe that's why they didn't throw the ball a whole lot, is because Burrow got banged up in this game. And they didn't want to, force him into throwing the ball a ton. But yeah, him throwing 29 times is a little unacceptable. Should we be worried about Cincy going back to a 60-40 run split? Yeah, I kind of already talked about that. I'm not really worried. I do think it was just kind of game script, game flow, and who their opponents are recently. Preseason, I traded away JT and Debo for CEH. Oh, David Johnson and Hollywood in a 1st. Okay, so really regretting that. So thankfully, Hollywood worked out for you. Otherwise, this trade would have been brutal. Like, you would have gotten fleeced in this trade, but you definitely still lost this one for sure. I would say CEH, a 1st in Hollywood, might be even remotely close enough to get to Jonathan Taylor. Probably not still. Like, I probably still would rather have Jonathan Taylor, but Debo Samuel on that side of the deal definitely hurts. I would have had Najee, JT, running backs with Devontae, DK. Debo as my wide receivers. Yeah, you probably would have won your league there, Big Al. My 30 Taylors were in 50 cent, 500K people. I'm done with big pools. Yeah. So if you guys want DFS advice, I strongly encourage you to sign up for Draft Sharks and read my articles, because I don't just tell you who to play. I tell you also decision-making and strategy related to DFS. And I also, if you want me to talk more about that on streams and stuff, let me know. I figure we don't really have a DFS audience, so I tend not to talk about DFS too much. But yeah, big pools are the biggest waste of money in all of DFS, in my opinion. I don't have good luck with big pools. I don't have the galaxy brain to play the 0.5% owned tight end that scores 2 touchdowns. Like, I'm not wired that way. So what I like to play is small field tournaments. And specifically, if you guys don't play DFS and you want to know what are the best contests to play in, go to the Pat Mayo Experience YouTube channel, go to Al Schmizzle on Twitter, go to Joe Holka, his YouTube channel, go to Peter Overset, his YouTube channel. They all have listener leagues that are rake free, meaning if you pay to get in these contests, because normally in a regular DFS contest, they take a percentage from you so that when you min cash or you're just inside the money, then you're going to get like a bit less than double your money, right? So if you're in a $33 contest, which is what I used to play in, you'd get $50 if you were in a min cash. But in a listener league, which is rake free, the Pat Mayo Experience is a $15 entry. You get $30 if you min cash. So it increases your return on investment a big amount because there's no rake in these contests, right? And they're all listener leagues. You can enter them just by going to these people's YouTube channels and entering the contest in the link in the description. And you don't even have to listen to their channel or anything. So that's what I would advise you to do. If you guys are just getting into DFS and you want to build a little bit of a bankroll, deposit $100, go play in some of these listener leagues, and you'd be surprised how easy it is to win some of these contests. And if you want an even bigger edge, you could listen to their content also and know that their audience is probably going to think similarly to them, and you can get an edge that way. So that's what I would advise you to do. Big pools to me are just a waste of money. I don't want to play in the Sunday Million or the Millie Maker. I have to for Draft Sharks. They want me to play in the Sunday Million just to show how I did. Because I need to also recap the lineups, and you can't see the Sunday Million lineup unless you played in it yourself. So that's what I have to do. But I only do one lineup a week because I just know I'm not going to win that tournament because it is just so galaxy brain the way that you have to play that a large field stuff. And I'm just not good at it. I would rather play 1,000 to 2,000, maybe even 500 people tournaments because you can get so much wrong and still do well, right? Like I had a lineup that, tripled my money that didn't have Jonathan Taylor in it. I had a lineup that tripled my money that didn't have Zach Ertz in it. Like I didn't have a lot of these guys that went off, and I was still able to make, solid investment there. So that's kind of my thoughts on DFS. Like big pools, to me, it's just too hard, in my opinion. Fant or Schultz rest of the season. That's pretty close. I'll take Dalton Schultz slightly just because of some of the injuries that we're seeing with the Cowboys wide receiver core, but they're like right next to each other. Hit the like button, everyone. Yes, appreciate that. There's nothing worse in fantasy than rate my team. No offense to that guy. Yeah, no offense to that guy. But it is definitely hard for me to do that. Rate my team stuff. Up 8, I have Kadarius Toney. They have Godwin, half PPR. I need Jason Garrett to not be an idiot tonight. That's an uphill battle for you for sure. Godwin definitely projects well against this defense, against Darnay Holmes in the slot, but good luck to you. Who is the best for rest of season? Montgomery, Michael Carter, Javonte Williams. So as much as I like the enticing upside of the rookies, I'm going to take David Montgomery there. I think his role is way more secure than those two guys. And with Justin Fields, hopefully, if Justin Fields is able to come back soon, Montgomery should be able to, that offense should get better as Justin Fields gets better. And Montgomery, obviously a big beneficiary of that. I would rate that Montgomery, Javonte, Michael Carter, or actually, sorry, I would rank that. Yeah. With Michael Carter's injury now, I'd probably rank that Montgomery, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter. And we'll have to monitor Michael Carter's injury. It didn't look entirely serious, but it could be a high ankle sprain. We don't really know yet. If it is, he's probably going to miss a couple games, which is going to hurt him rest of the season, obviously. Kittle or Hawkinson rest of the season? Kittle, not close for Jay Culp there. The offense is just so much worse in Detroit. It's just a huge tiebreaker. Sorry, so many similar questions. This is a make or break trade for me. I'm giving up Cam Newton and Waller. Who should I take? One running back, one tight end, Montgomery. So are you only getting one of these players? Oh, okay, I see. Never mind. Montgomery, Henderson, Mitchell, Kareem Hunt, and Schultz or Fant. So you did ask this question earlier. I think the two that you talked about were Montgomery and Schultz. That I would go with those two. I think those are the best options in this deal. I would rather have Montgomery than all the running backs listed there. I would rather have Schultz than Fant. So I would go with Montgomery and Schultz. Fant, again, like him and Schultz are really close. It all depends on what you value. Fant has a better target share, so in a PPR league, he might be a little bit better. But Schultz has more touchdown upside, and he has just more upside in general because of the offense that he plays in. He could have, a 2-touchdown game or, a 100-yard game because, Dak throws for 400 yards or whatever. The offense is way more fast-paced, so his floor is going to be higher. So I would take Schultz and Montgomery and that side of the deal, and I think you should make that trade personally. My takeaway is that Jonathan Taylor's built different. Yes. Happy beat the Bucks week, boys. Oh, get the fuck out of here, Brock. Patriots wide receiver core isn't good enough to take him deep. Coming from a Pats fan, I agree. I don't think their wide receiver core is good enough to take him deep. They can win games, close games in the playoffs. They can play that type of style, and it's going to work against some teams, and it's not going to work against others. It's really going to depend who they get in the playoffs. If they get a high-powered offense that can also play defense like the Ravens, then it's going to be tough for them to beat that team, in my opinion. I don't think they can beat the Ravens. The Bills, maybe. Like, you might be able to beat the Bills if Josh Allen's a little reckless. But there's a couple teams in the AFC that I just don't think they can beat. Should I trade Najee and Chubb for JT in Dynasty? That's a tough question. I would say, so Najee Harris, for reference, is my RB. Let me look at my rankings right now. Is my RB6 in Dynasty right now. And again, if you're talking rebuilding running backs, he'd be my RB3 behind Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift. But I have Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara ahead of Najee Harris just in my overall rankings. So Najee Harris is right up there with Jonathan Taylor in terms of a rebuilding running back that you'd love to have. I personally would probably make this trade, though, because Nick Chubb is not a descending running back. I don't want to say that he's declining, but in terms of his value as an asset, he is declining because he is 26 years old as a running back who gets his primary value from carrying the ball and taking punishment up the middle. That's a concern for Nick Chubb. So I would rather have Jonathan Taylor. At a 5, like you're getting 5 years younger, 4 years younger Jonathan Taylor than Nick Chubb. And yes, you're giving up Najee Harris, but Najee Harris, I'm more concerned about going forward, like by a lot, than Jonathan Taylor, because Najee Harris is a situation dependent running back as it stands right now, which gives me a bit of Leonard Fournette vibes, where if the situation stops being the case, like that it's very good and he's getting all this volume, then maybe he's not, the greatest running back in the world. Maybe he's not the guy that's going to be super efficient on low touches. With Jonathan Taylor, I know he can handle a workload. I know he's good with a workload. And I know he's an elite superstar running back talent that will hold value no matter what because he's that good. Same with how Saquon Barkley has dealt with what I would say is his floor in terms of his career so far, where he's been dealing with injuries and things of that nature. His offense has been terrible, but he's still holding value because he's a superstar talent. That's the same thing with Jonathan Taylor. I think if Najee Harris
lost the workload, right? If they drafted a running back in the second round or something, and they worked him into the rotation, or they signed somebody, worked him into the rotation, or the Steelers can't figure out their quarterback situation, or something goes wrong, it's going to be tough for Najee Harris. So I would rather have Jonathan Taylor in that trade. We drafted Nikhil Harry over AJ Brown, Debo, and DK Metcalf. Bills suck. Bill sucks at drafting receivers. Yeah, I still think you guys should have drafted AJ Brown. I think he was a perfect fit for what the Patriots like to do. Yeah, I did not like Nikhil Harry coming out. I was very alone in that camp, because Nikhil Harry was one of those analytics guys that produced at a young age and was, had high draft capital. Everybody loved him on paper, but when I watched the film, I didn't see it. So that's why I use both. I am not a film guy. I'm not an analytics guy. I use both for that reason, because I did not see it on film with Nikhil Harry. I was like, this is not a first round receiver. This is not a second round receiver. I barely thought he was a third round receiver on film. So I was not all in on the Nikhil Harry elite fantasy asset, because I didn't see it on film. And I did see it on film with a guy like Terry McLaurin, who had terrible analytics, but on film, I'm like, this dude can play. So I'm going to believe in him. And I had him rated higher than Nikhil Harry. And I was probably the only one on planet Earth that did. So I'll take that W. Now, I don't want to get too high on myself, because I did have Hakeem Butler inside my top 5 wide receivers, and that was a big yikes. But, we win some, we lose some around here. DJ Vic says, trade Zeke. I probably wouldn't. It depends what you can get for him, but I think I'm still fine holding him. Josh, those running backs are stupid insane. Do not move any. Yep. Have Goddard. Should I grab Ertz or Knox off waivers? I'm okay grabbing Ertz or Knox. It really doesn't matter to me. I think they're both kind of in the same tier. If you want to stash another tight end and stream matchups, you can, but I think you're okay with Goddard as well. It doesn't really matter going forward. If you have a bench spot, I'm okay picking up one of those guys. Drop Tennessee defense. Didn't look good against Houston. Yeah, you probably shouldn't have even been rostered in the first place. Their defense isn't very good. How was the game? It looked pretty rainy on TV. It was very rainy in person too. So, I mean, the game was good. Like I said, it was a fun game to watch. It was a fun game to be a part of, with Jonathan Taylor going hog wild like he did. But I definitely wish the weather would have held up a little bit better, because at the beginning of the game, there was no rain. It wasn't as cold. And we were at the tailgate, talking to some Bills fans, and we really got the Bills Mafia vibe out there. I was cheering for the Bills because, I was just at a Bills game. You got to cheer for the Bills if you don't have a rooting interest. So that part of it was really fun. But once we got into like the second quarter and it started raining, then I was getting a little bit pissed off. I was like, okay, I kind of would rather be watching this on TV right now, even though the game was very exciting to watch. Seeing Jonathan Taylor stiff arm the one guy on the touchdown run got everybody excited, at least me, because I didn't have a rooting interest in the game. But yeah, the game environment was pretty dope though, especially before the rain started. Okay, so I'm going to answer a couple more questions. I'm going to head out of here because I've already been on here for an hour. But have Rodgers? Should I grab Cam for Rodgers bye week? Yeah, you can grab Cam. Throw him into your lineup while Rodgers is out. Currently have Cook, Najee, Mixon, Chubb, and Robinson. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're just bragging at this point. Those are great running backs. Williams, Elijah Moore. Yep, big time Elijah Moore. Burrow or Newton next week? Again, I have no idea who they're playing, so I can't really answer that question right now. But off the top of my head, I would say Burrow. But I have no idea who they're playing. Do you think? Actually, I know Burrow is playing the Steelers and Newton is playing the Dolphins. Actually, I do know who they're playing. So, I'll not give a smart alecky answer next time. In that matchup, I'd still go with Burrow though. Do you think Jalen Hurts stays the starter next year, even though the Eagles will potentially have 3 first rounders? Yeah, it looks like they are going to have 3 first rounders based on Carson Wentz playing as much as he has. I still think Jalen Hurts stays the starter. And it's mainly because I don't think there's a quarterback in this class that is cut above way better than Jalen Hurts. And that's not really a Jalen Hurts compliment. It's not meant to be. It's more a detriment to this draft class. It's just not very good. If Matt Corral is the crown jewel of this class, which I think he is right now in terms of the quarterbacks, Carson Strong's playing well, I guess. Malik Willis is playing well. The Pitt kid's playing well. Kenny Pickett's playing well. But none of these guys are studs. It's not like Jalen Hurts or the Eagles had 3 first rounders in this draft class with all the quarterbacks in this one. So I think Jalen Hurts probably gets one more year, if I'm being honest. I score 156.5 PPR league. Yep, that's good news for you. I'm up 38. My opponent still has Brady and Fournette PPR. Do you think I can pull out the win? That's a lot of points that he needs, but Brady and Fournette could definitely get there. If you get a Brady to Fournette touchdown, it might be curtains on you for sure. I think you should be 50-50, 40% chance that you lose that probably. Had JT in my lineup and down by 60 with Brady and Tony left in my lineup. Wow, how did you have JT and you're still down by 60? That's wild. Brady and Tony could get there, but that's an uphill battle for sure. Guys, would you take Chase plus Landry for Tyreek Hill? That's pretty close. I would probably rather have Tyreek Hill slightly, unless it's like a really deep league and it's PPR and Jarvis Landry's like your third flex or something, and you can start him each and every week. Then I might be okay making that move. But I think Hill and Chase are basically the same type of wide receiver, only Hill is in a much more pass heavy offense and he has a better target share and air yard share than Chase, even though Chase has a great, share of his offense as well. So it's pretty much, they're in a similar tier for me rest of the season, but I would rather have Hill slightly. All right. So, sorry, I couldn't get to all actually, there's only a couple more questions. I'll speed through these. My lineup was, that's rough. Having those guys. Oh, okay. Wait, hold on. Okay. You said you put up a lot of points. Yeah. You had Jefferson, Chase scored a touchdown, 2 had a good game. CMC solid, Waller solid. Yep. Waddle solid. Yeah. You definitely did well there. Do you think Mooney keeps consistent production rest of the season? That was one of my takeaways. I did have, Darnell Mooney listed here. Darnell Mooney was able to, where is it? Hold on. Darnell Mooney, 16 targets, only 5 receptions, but he had a huge play, and that's 121 yards and a touchdown. I think Darnell Mooney is going to be valuable as long as Allen Robinson's out of the lineup. And I think part of the reason why he was able to produce is because Justin Fields got hurt. And that's because Dalton is just a better passer at this point in his career in terms of being decisive with the ball, knowing where to throw it. So that's part of it. I think Mooney is definitely a guy that needs to be rostered and potentially flexed every week. As long as Allen Robinson's out, I think you can flex him each and every week though, if that answers your question. 5 and 6. Yeah, you have a good lineup, but sometimes it just doesn't matter. Sometimes you just get screwed. Solid trade. I think you're shooting for the higher upside and potential. Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about my trade. Yeah, I am shooting for the higher upside and potential for sure. What do you think of De'Ami Brown and Josh Palmer? I think both of those guys are good dynasty buys because they're not really producing right now, but they have shown flashes of being productive. So if you wanted to buy those guys in dynasty, I like that. Hey, without Vita Vea, I would be worried about the Colts rushing attack. However, I'm terrified the Bucs passing attack with AB and Gronk. Should be an exciting game. Even without Vita Vea, I trust our coaching staff's ability to be able to game plan against Jonathan Taylor, because even without Vita Vea for most of the year last year, from week 4 to the NFC Championship, we didn't have Vita Vea on the field, and we were still the best run defense in the league. So I still think we're going to be able to, I don't know if we're going to shut down Jonathan Taylor because nobody is able to right now, but I think we're going to do the best job that anybody has done thus far in this run against Jonathan Taylor. And if that happens, like the Colts really can't do anything against the Bucs if Jonathan Taylor gets shut down. You should spurt off some quick trade targets for those whose last day for trades is today. Yeah, that's a good idea. I would say, so number one trade target for me right now is probably AJ Brown based on the feedback that I've seen from you guys. I also think that, again, as a general rule, just look back on some people that have had some down weeks the last couple of weeks, and you could probably fashion your own trade targets that way, as long as the usage is there. Like if you want to look for a quarterback upgrade, Josh Allen's probably a guy that you could go after. Same goes for Kyler Murray. If you're looking for a quarterback upgrade, I did talk about some running backs last week. I still think Saquon Barkley is a good trade target, depending on what happens tonight. If he has a down game tonight and you could still make a trade after this week, then I would go after Saquon Barkley if you can. If he has like a, 85% usage game, but he only goes, 16 for 45 yards, no touchdowns, 3 targets for 2 receptions and 18 yards, go out and trade for Saquon Barkley. I think he's a good option as well. I also think if you're in a situation where you need, a guy for down the stretch run, Miles Sanders came back this week, did actually see pretty decent involvement. He makes a surprising return too, which nobody expected him to come back this week. 46% of the snaps, 36% of the routes, 17 opportunities, which is pretty solid usage, if you ask me, for his first game back off of a multi-week injury. So he's a guy that I think you could go out and target. I also think David Montgomery is still a great trade target on the low right now as well. A wide receiver, I'm trying to think who would be a good trade target other than AJ Brown. DJ Moore and Terry McLaurin both got into the end zone in this game, so they might be a little harder to acquire than those guys. I think Chase Claypool's usage is always there, so he's a guy that you could go out and target. Deontay Johnson, same thing, but he just had a big game last night too. Those are kind of the ones I could think of off the top of my head. Somebody asked about Brandon Cooks. I think he's a good trade target if you need a depth wide receiver. I'm not worried about him. He's going to have down games because his offense is bad, but his target share and his usage is going to lead to more often than not being good for fantasy. Do you think Mixon over Zeke rest of the season? I would still rather have Zeke slightly, but it's getting closer with the way Mixon's playing. Nikhil never passed my eye test at all. He's not strong enough to compete in the NFL. That was my problem with him as well. It wasn't his strength necessarily. It was how he won was, contested catches and things like that. And I just don't like betting on those wide receivers in general because I think separation is how you win in the NFL because not every quarterback is going to be willing to throw jump balls all the time, right? We've seen it from Kenny Goliday. Like Matthew Stafford was willing to do that, but Daniel Jones hasn't been thus far since Kenny Goliday has been with the Giants. And we saw from Cortland Sutton as well that he performed better with more risk taker type of quarterbacks in the past couple of years. And I think Nikhil Harry, had he gone to a different team, might have been different, but I prefer separators all day, every day, and twice on Sunday over guys that are jump ball guys. Are you worried about the Packers offense with so many injuries to the O-line? Got Aaron Jones. A little bit, I would say. I like Bakhtiari's kind of situation's been really mishandled. It sounds like he might have suffered a setback, so it's definitely a little bit concerning, but Packers offense also has injuries to Aaron Rodgers based on some of the things that I heard with him. He got like stepped on or something on his toe, and he said it was like much more painful than turf toe or something like that. So that doesn't sound like a good sign. Sounds like he's going to try and get healthy over the bye week, but we'll have to see about that. I'm a little worried about the Packers offense as a Davante Adams owner. Just got the trade accepted. Looking good. You got a better flex now, like you talked about. And I think you're okay. Like, again, CEH is not a guy that I'm excited about. So if you wanted to sell CEH, I probably would. Again, I'll talk about more trade targets on tomorrow's video. I do have to head out of here in a second. But Eduardo says, Emmanuel Sanders trade or drop? Renfro trade. I wouldn't drop Emmanuel Sanders. I don't really think they're going to get anything better on the waiver wire. And Renfro trade, again, anytime you can get anything other than like middling wide receiver 3 value for any guys like that, then I'm okay making that trade. If you can handle losing the depth and you package both of these guys together and you get up to like a T Higgins or somebody more valuable on a week over week basis, I'm okay doing something like that, Eduardo. Does the injury of Henry and his age affect how you draft him in redraft going forward? I mean, that's all going to come down to all the information I have next year at the time of drafts. It probably will affect me a little bit, but not a lot, to the point that I'm not going to draft him or something. Nigel says, thanks to the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Wish me luck. Best fantasy channel. Appreciate that, Nigel. For sure. Should we look to move on from Mike Williams now that he had a good game? You definitely could. If somebody's willing to pay up for what they thought he could be, you could definitely move on from him. So I'm going to head out of here, guys. Peace out. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. So thanks for joining me. We will be live again later tonight. So if I didn't get to your question or you wanted to ask something else, save it for Monday Night Football. Go Bucks.